All right. Thank you very much for that welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. It's really nice to be able to kick off a session after lunch. In case anyone falls asleep, I can just blame the food and not necessarily the content. So I'm really happy about that, first and foremost. Secondly, I hope you're all enjoying New York City. Perhaps many of you are from different locations from the United States and the globe. So if you haven't been to New York City, welcome. Enjoy. We have a beautiful spring day out there. Hopefully we'll get you out there with a little bit of sunshine and good weather. So let's just hop right into it. 10 do's and don'ts with your data. So just a show of hands here. How many folks here have any experience within clinical operations, specifically designing clinical trials, operating within clinical trials, compiling data, anything of that sort? And how many of you within pharmaceutical marketing? Obviously, for a marketing-targeted conference, you'll have many folks with that experience. So my experience is primarily within drug development and commercialization. So as previously mentioned, 20 years experience, many of that has been focused within development of therapeutics, from business case development and due diligence all the way through to commercialization and everything in between. For the past 3 years, I've been with Bayer US in their data sciences and analytics organization. And within that area, what we do is we work on a number of innovation projects. And those projects are focused around how we can most effectively warehouse and analyze data, how we can best collect data, with the objective for us to be able to make clinical trials shorter, faster, and with more applicable outcomes. And so for me, in providing this presentation to all of you, I thought I would like to be able to draw parallels with regard to data collection and analysis that could be utilized for your purposes, even though it's going to be coming from the perspective of clinical operations and research and development. It's important to recognize that with such tremendous bodies of data that are available to us out there, we need to normalize our standards between our data collection, technologies that we use, and also how we can all learn from each other. We're in an age where we have data as the new oil. It really is a wealth of information that we can utilize to gain a number of insights. However, the challenge here is to be able to do it in an efficient manner that allows us to be able to gain the most value. Just quickly, some of the pictures here, as previously mentioned too, I have a lot of different areas that I like to speak about and keep informed about, specifically gene editing, as well as STEM education, and in addition, rare disease. And so there are a lot of different areas where I look to be able to leverage my knowledge within data analytics and insights to be able to provide the most benefit for a number of different areas. So again, the objective here today is, what type of considerations can I provide to you that you can utilize to best use your data and your insights? And on a daily basis, you're confounded with a number of different variables and a number of different data sets. And while it is valuable information, what do you take, what do you give back, and what can you garner from that information? And let me just give you some insights onto what we've done. So here is a matrix here that shows a number of areas. And so in terms of kind of the spectrum of data here and what we'll talk about warehousing and analytics, our ability to store our data and analyze those data. Mobile tracking, the degree to which that you utilize mobile devices and technology to be able to acquire information. And that information does include real-time data as well. Data safety and confounders. With regard to your data sets, it's really important to understand what you're trying to target, and then beyond what you're trying to target, what other influences are out there that may affect the conclusions that you come down to. As well as data safety, and that speaks to your ability to have your data warehoused in such a way that you can be assured, which is very difficult, that your data will stay where it is supposed to stay. It's not going to get into the hands of parties that utilize it for other purposes. New versus old data. Is it really necessary to constantly collect data? With so many bodies of data available, have we most efficiently utilized the data that we have? And how do we do that? And again, selective publication, smaller data sets, and consent. The conclusions that you make, what you put out there, and assuring that the data you have collected, other parties understand what you're doing with them, or at least they're informed to the extent to which those data will be utilized. So let's start with some do's. Do seek out warehousing and analytics platforms. An example I could give you at Bayer within our clinical operations area, we're currently a member of the Accenture Life Sciences Cloud. Now, the Accenture Life Sciences Cloud is a consortium of a number of different pharmaceutical organizations, and we meet on a periodic basis to be able to strategize as well as select areas of focus for us to be able to most effectively create our cloud-based application. Our cloud-based application is the Accenture Life Sciences Cloud. And that cloud allows us to be able to have, in a cloud basis, not only all of our data that we're going to warehouse within our clinical trials, but also supports a number of visualizations and analytics platforms. Really, the idea here is that we're trying to narrow our focus. We're trying to allow us to not have to go out and get a number of analytics platforms year after year after year or data warehousing solutions. Instead, let's have a solution that a number of pharmaceutical companies are using, that we can share our insights, share our thoughts, and allow us to be able to truly utilize the power of the data that we collect. Do be selective with what to publish. This really talks about the insights that you garner from your data. And the one thing that we also have to consider when we're analyzing our data is with the bodies of data that we have, what haven't we determined with our data? Is there anything hidden within the data that we currently have as well as the data that we acquire that we could possibly be liable for at some point in the future? Particularly when you're analyzing data sets within clinical operations. Are there insights that you understand that you know about or perhaps that you don't know about that you could be liable for in the future, given the litigious society that we're currently in? It is really critical to understand what types of data you have and how do you understand that. A big part of that is understanding what you're looking for, and that'll drive the types of data you want to be able to collect. Consider mobile for data acquisition. A number of us have had exposure to devices that allow us to collect information and track information. Eventually, we're going to get to a point where we're going to be able to collect data in real time. And that is incredibly valuable because this allows you to be able to get insights into not only patients, but whomever you're tracking based on the situation that they're currently in. This can certainly be a benefit. It could also be a downfall, only because if you consider the amount of data that you would be able to collect on a real-time basis, what do you take? What do you hold on to? What is truly valuable? What is value add? But this is certainly the direction that many companies are going in, particularly when we consider our clinical operations activities. And so it's certainly an area that you want to continue to consider if you have not already. Smaller data sets. The one area that, especially when you talk about mobile, is considering the smaller data sets. One example is within Bayer, we're currently pursuing a program that is going to allow us to be able to track all of our clinical information in real time from the patients that we have in our studies. And so one of the things that we're finding is that a number of companies are coming to us with a lot of different solutions, either let it be a mobile app, a device, a combination. And while all of those devices and all those apps can do wonderful things with regard to data collection, the one thing they're not doing is focusing. We're not getting focused within particular therapeutic areas. And the unfortunate component of that is that how can we understand the nuances of these therapeutic areas with regard to the populations that we're tracking, as well as the data sets that we're looking to acquire? It is really critical that from the outset, you define what you want to look for. And then based upon that, consider smaller data sets. get the most out of the data that you currently have and that you want to be able to acquire, as opposed to trying to get as much information as you possibly can. And consent. The reason why I put consent up here is as we're moving forward with so many sophisticated analytics platforms, we're going to have the ability to gain insights from data that we couldn't possibly do before. Another area that we're currently looking at Bayer is in silico clinical trials. The ability for us to utilize, as a companion to clinical trials, simulation of an outcome. And so considering the types of data sets that you need to be able to garner those types of outcomes, you have to consider genomic data. You have to consider hospital data. You have to consider lifestyle data. You have to consider demographic data. And so considering where you need to get all these different data sets from will drive the types of consents that you need to be able to acquire. And in addition, when you combine these data sets, are you looking at specializations within consent that perhaps you haven't even considered before? It's critical that we work with regulatory bodies to make sure that we can determine together exactly what we need to get from patients and from any other subjects with regard to allowances for what we can do with data. Because ultimately, we're responsible for any of the insights that we acquire from those. Don't assume your data are safe. Audit, audit, audit as much as you possibly can. Talk to other companies. See what they're doing, particularly if they're working with organizations that you're working with, to assure that you have the greatest safeguards out there available to you so you can avoid breaches within data. It's breaches in data as well as redundancy of data. The last thing you want to be able to have is a company that you're working with that hasn't gone through a disaster recovery protocol, and if something were to happen to their servers, or something would have happened to their power sources, or any number of occurrences, all your data are lost. Those are insights you can't get back. Once data are lost, they're lost. So check, double check, triple check the organizations that you work with, that you can assure that data safety is paramount. Don't assume that you've nailed your confounding variables. Again, this really speaks to the data sets that you use and the insights that you gain once you analyze your data. And coming back to the in silico trial concept, the number of confounding variables that are out there has really delayed the onset of such a technology. And it's a main reason why a number of companies still aren't pursuing that technology, but instead are pursuing components of that technology. It's a quicker win. Consider if you were to actually simulate a clinical trial, the amount of different variables that you have to consider, especially the variability of those variables. And so, within your own insights and your own data collection, keep your data sets small. You reduce your number of confounders. Don't think you need all the data you collect. We get a number of study teams that come to us within clinical information analytics and data sciences and analytics that want to be able to use devices. They want to be able to use applications within clinical studies. Only because they've spoken to a number of different study teams and different organizations. They've read a lot. And they see this is the way to go to be able to make their clinical trials shorter, cheaper, and to be able to come with the outcomes that they want to be able to achieve. The issue there is you collect so much data that you do not need or do not require, and that you don't even know what to do with, that you could end up being liable for having these data, particularly with any insights that you may be able to gain. So this is something that we touched on before, but I want to be able to touch on this again because it really comes down to understanding what you're looking for, yeah? And be able to have a definition of type of outcomes that you want, as well as the types of information that you're looking to achieve and the types of analytics you want to utilize. So remember, it's You don't necessarily need to collect so much data, but it is important to define the type of data that you want to collect. And then not only collect it, but also determine if there are existing data out there. There may not be a need to be able to collect new data. Look at older data sets. In addition to looking at older data sets, what this will allow you to do, it will allow you to benchmark. If you're able, to be able to analyze older data sets that can tell you a certain outcome, right? Or be able to give you a level of information, then utilize those data and be able to apply any of the new variables that you want to apply to it. And so this way you can utilize a current population that's out there, and also you can benchmark the conclusions that are out there. Let's say you want to verify an old data set. This gives you a good starting point to be able to see whether or not data that is currently existing is value add, and if what you're looking to pursue with regard to your data collection is going to be value add. And again, this speaks to it as well. Don't think you need to collect new data. Utilize data sets that are out there, as well as the analytics that you can apply to current data sets. Really critical that you understand that the technology that is out there, and in particular some of the presentations you've attended and ones that you will attend, that are going to allow us for insights that you could never ever think before, never ever see before. And it's very exciting to be able to have these types of insights. It also is very exciting to know that we, as a society, can collect data in a lot of different formats. The idea is, don't collect for the sake of collecting, only because there are costs involved. There are costs involved with warehousing those data. There are costs involved with assuring that you have populations that are going to actually follow your protocols, particularly within clinical operations. And in closing, just a few insights that I wanted to be able to share with all of you with what we're doing at Bayer and some of the insights that we've seen in some of the different types of areas that we've pursued. And so we're all constantly learning. It is a very exciting area. And for me, I look forward to a lot more learnings into the future in this, and to be able to support ultimately what our objective is at Bayer, is to be able to have products out onto the market and to be able to assure that they are safe and efficacious. So with that, I thank you very much.